As we discuss the commuter crisis in Rhode Island, Governor Dan McKee is joining us live in studio. He's sitting beside me right now. We're going to talk more about that. Good morning to you, Governor. Thank you so much for joining us, and welcome back to ABC6.
Well, Kara, thank you very much for having me.
So glad that you are here. So you've kind of just seen what we've been looking at over the course of this time with the change in the traffic pattern. We saw 2 weeks ago, one lane added in one direction, another lane added here just recently. What are your thoughts about the progress of the bridge situation so far and the recent changes?
Well, we're very hopeful that the added lanes and then the new asphalt and the reflectors that are going to be put on there are going to make sure that the traffic is flowing smooth so that people can get there to destinations quick enough. I like John's comment to make sure everybody stays in their lane. I think we have a real effort right now of enforcement with our state police to reduce the number of accidents, because the accidents are what causing most of the backup now. And if we can avoid accidents by staying in your lane, staying off your phone, and then really adhering to the speed limits that are posted, that's going to be very helpful to us. We know it's been a difficult, and that's an understatement for the people who have been traveling, on the 195 over the bridge. We expect that things are going to go a little smoother, and then I can get to the work of making sure that we take down the old bridge that had failed, and then build a brand new bridge that'll outlast all our lifetimes.
So we're definitely looking forward to what we're understanding is going to be the demolition and the reimplementation, the rebuilding of a new bridge there. Are there any concerns about the weight limits on that one side of the bridge? We've heard some people say that it's shaking now that they've got that sixth lane open.
So safety has been our number one priority, right? And that's the reason why we closed the bridge on December 11th, because we felt that the safety issues far outweighed any other consideration. So right now we've already done all the engineering. We know that we're safe, with the 3 lanes going both ways. So that people should feel very safe about that. Again, if we can keep everybody safe out of accidents,
right,
that flow is going to go really strong, and people are going to be able to get to their destinations. Our small businesses are not going to be impacted as the way they have been over the last 4 months. And now, like I said before, now we can focus on taking down the old bridge that failed and then building a brand new bridge. And I like to say that it will outlast all our lifetimes, because the work that was on the board that was going on at the moment we shut down the bridge, that was about a 25-year fix. We're talking about a 100-year fix, so that our families are not going to have to go through this aggravation. This has been a 30-year project in many ways on both sides of the bridge in terms of construction. We're going to bring that to an end, and it'll be a 2+ years of construction, and that's why it's so important for all of us to really pay attention to making sure that pay attention when you're driving, reducing those accidents. And we're very hopeful that everybody's going to be really pleased with what's going on, and they'll be really collaborating and cooperating and being very courteous during that 1 mile stretch, 1 mile and a half stretch.
So we want to talk a little bit more about the timeline in a couple of different applications here. Can you tell us about the timeline between how often these new patterns are being inspected? Because some of the inspections were concerning with the old bridge, so we want to make sure that we've got monitoring in place. Is that right?
Yeah, there's monitoring in place. I stepped in when we found out there wasn't going to be a 90-day reset, right? And that was a reset for going forward, but I brought in my own engineer that's accountable to me and my office. We've brought in a legal team and making sure that there's accountability going backwards, so we feel very comfortable that they'll do that work, and making sure anybody who is accountable is held accountable, for the problems that we've had occurred.
Speaking of this legal team, I did recall that you brought that up. Have they brought up any accountability concerns or addressed any deficiencies with the way that was handled prior to these lanes being opened?
That's the job. And as both the attorneys said at the press conference, Max Wistow and Jonathan Savage, they've been charged to make sure that every stone is turned over to see what brought us to this point, and then we'll share that with the public. But right now on litigation issues, that it's a relatively slow process in many ways to get all the information together. And then our engineering team is collaborating with our legal team right now, making sure that what led us to this point, we discover what that is, and we'll hold people accountable that should be held accountable.
But no staffing recommendations at this point in that regard?
No.
Okay, understood. So then one of the things, going back to the timeline that we heard from Rhode Director Peter Alviti, was that the process of getting these new lanes implemented moved a little bit faster than was initially anticipated. Have there been any adjustments in the time frame for the long-term project?
Well, the long-term project is going to be, one is that we're, first of all, I'm bringing a core group together on weekly meetings, Cara,
Yes.
right, to make sure we have all the players there, whether it's commerce to help the small businesses or DOT in terms of the RFPs that have to be put in place. So we're on a time schedule right now where we believe before the end of the month we'll have RFPs prepared for both the demolition and the building of the new bridge. And then there's a process there, a 90-day process or so, in terms of people responding, and then we will be able to, companies will be able to determine the company that we'll select. And then at that point in time, our anticipation is before the end of the summer, the demolition work will begin. And then sometime around this time next year, the new bridge will be, the construction on that will be in place. But we'll be awarding the construction of the new bridge to a contractor sometime towards the end of the summer, so that they can start ordering their supplies, making sure that the steel is there and the time frame is there. And then inside the RFPs, there'll be incentives that we're going to build in, working with the federal government as well, because they're going to be paying at least about 80% of the cost of this bridge and the work, to make sure there's incentives for early delivery. We want to make sure that this is done safely and done really well, but we want to make sure that the time frame is consolidated to the most efficient time frame possible.
So a couple of follow-ups there on some of the funding matters. That is going to be local for these contractors. Is it open for local jobs, really, to help get some of the bridge work reinstated?
Well, that's one of the upsides of a project, infrastructure project, is that people will be employed, right? And so we expect that local labor will be engaged, but we're going to be opening up the process to a national opening in terms of the RFPs, that anybody can bid in on it. We want the most qualified people to come in. Remember, this is an emergency in many ways.
Of course. And
so we need to make sure that we're getting it done as quickly as we can, as safely as we can. And that's why we're going to open it up to a large group. The engineer that I've brought in has contacts around the country on bridges.
Can you name that engineer?
The engineer, you know what, you got me. I'm going to say it wrong. We'll get it back to you.
Okay,
but
we'll share that with you guys on air and
but
online.
Our engineer will, make sure that he's working on behalf of like an owner's rep, and then they'll spread the word to all the national companies as well local companies. No one's going to be denied the ability to bid on the project, but at the same point in time, we want to select the company that has the ability to deliver as quickly as we can with the very best structural building, that possible.
So another question, just something that I want to bring to the table that some people have had some concerns about as far as the funding is concerned. A lot of businesses particularly have felt isolated by the bridge closure. With that funding, are there any additional sources that's coming from? We know federal dollars. Are there perhaps any leftover funds from COVID that would be applicable for this?
Well, we have just put in a budget amendment, working with our General Assembly, with the Speaker, the Senate President. We've asked for about $1.3 million that was currently appropriated for commerce and helping businesses, to be really directed specifically to the businesses and the communities that have been most impacted, which is East Providence and Providence. We know that there's other communities and other businesses that may be impacted. But of that $1.3 million, the way that we're proposing it is that $1 million of that would be split between Providence and East Providence and directed right to the municipal leaders, and then they can kind of determine how they want to help those businesses they believe have been impacted. We'll hold about $300,000 of that if it gets approved as we presented it, and in commerce, and then we'll be able to use those dollars to to help in other ways with this business community.
Understood. All right. Just before we end here, I do want to give you the opportunity. As you see, we hear directly from our viewers on our Now Local News app. Is there anything that you would like to say to the people who are making their way through these changes on a daily basis and have been doing so since December?
Well, first of all, we know that it's been an incredible disruption. It's been a disruption in many ways, the DOT, to the people, the businesses, the people who are using the road. So we thank you for that. But as we go forward now with these 3 lanes, the new paving, and the additional enforcement with our state police, be respectful of our state police. They are trying to help keep people safe. Not only are we helping the people that are driving by reducing accidents, but the people avoiding accidents right now avoids a lot of aggravation for them as well, right? In terms of insurance and increases potentially in terms of having to go to auto body shops. Let's make sure that we really respect our fellow residents and people who are visiting the state, make sure that we're courteous on the road.
Thank you so much for that update and for letting people hear from you on this important and impactful matter. Thank you so much for joining us, Governor McKee.
Okay, Kara, thank you so much.
Stay with us here on ABC 6. We'll be right back after this short break.